Good morning, my Wildfire superheroes, and welcome to Wildfire Kids Church Online and the next instalment of your Superhero Basics training. We've been learning all about some everyday heroes from the Bible, everyday people just like you and me. But we're far from ordinary, because when God is working through us, we can do extraordinary things. So far this term, we've looked at how, with God on our side, heroes can have courage. We discovered that heroes see the opportunity to help others, and that heroes rely on God in the good times and the bad times. Well, today's hero from the Bible is Esther. Esther was an unlikely hero who found herself in just the right place at just the right time to do something incredible. Esther was a hero because God gave her the courage to stand up for what was right, even when it was seemingly impossible thing to do. But before we look at the story of Esther, I've got a little object lesson that I want to show you, and I've brought along a helper to do this. Okay, I've got a little experiment that I'm going to do. Matthew's come in to help me with this experiment. Now, I've got a question for Matthew. Matthew, do you trust me?
A little bit.
A little bit. Oh, that's good, because I'll tell you what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is, I've got a rock here and it's suspended from a string, okay? And my little experiment is that I'm going to hold the rock against your face. I'm going to let the rock go and then see what happens. Do you trust me now?
Not much anymore.
Not much. Don't really blame him. Okay, well, are you game to give it a go? He's game. Okay, let's give it a go. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. You see, in that object lesson, I was asking Matthew to do something a little bit crazy, wasn't I? I was asking him to stand his ground and trust me, even though danger was quite possibly coming his way in the form of a large rock. It would be completely normal in that situation to feel a little bit nervous, to flinch or move away, but Matthew held his ground and he trusted me, and he lived to tell the story. Phew. Well, in the story of Esther, we are going to see how God gave Esther courage to stand her ground and to do what was right. But that doesn't mean that she always felt really brave about it. So let's hear Esther's story. I'm going to show it to you using a little animated clip. And as you watch, I want you to think about how Esther is feeling in the story and how she's feeling when she has to make some really tough decisions.
It's time for a Bible story. A long time ago, there was a woman named Esther who lived in the land of Persia.
Oh, that's where all those fancy rugs come from, right?
Yeah.
Those are nice. Little pricey, though.
God had an amazing plan for Esther's life. She would be remembered forever as a hero.
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Super Esther. What does she do? Save the planet from a meteor?
Nope.
Did she rescue 1,000,000 kittens from a tree?
No.
Did she carry a bomb out of Gotham City on the Batwing so everyone wouldn't blow up, but you're not sure for like 5 minutes if she made it or not?
No, that's Batman. Come on.
Right. Still gets me every time.
Esther did something even more amazing than all of those things, and it sure took a lot of guts to do it.
All right, lay it on me. What's the sitch?
Well, first of all, Esther and her family were Jewish, which was kind of a big deal back then in Persia.
What do you mean?
Well, at the time, the Jewish people weren't really liked by the Persians. In fact, they had to live in exile, and they weren't treated very well at all.
Yikes, that's no good.
Esther was also an orphan, and she lived with her cousin Mordecai, who protected and raised her after her parents died.
Sweet beard, bro.
Then one day, something happened that would change Esther's life big time. The king of Persia wanted to find a new wife, so he put on a huge beauty pageant where the winner would become the queen.
Wait, really? That's a pretty weird way to get hitched. Like, Congratulations! You're the new Miss America, and we're married.
Well, as weird as it may sound, that's what the king wanted to do, so that's what happened. Women from all over the kingdom were there, but there was only one that the king favored. Esther was very beautiful, and God gave her favor in the king's eyes, so just like that, she won the pageant.
Wait, so Esther became the queen of Persia?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool and all, but didn't you say that Esther was Jewish and that, the Persians didn't like Jewish people?
That's true, but the king didn't know that Esther was Jewish. She didn't want him to find out because she didn't know what would happen to her. So she kept it a secret and never brought it up.
Okay, so now she's the queen. Crazy. Is that it?
No way. This is where the story really picks up. There's another guy that works for the king named Haman, and he's a pretty bad dude. He hates the Jewish people, so much so that he actually brings an idea to the king that would be terrible, to kill all of the Jewish people.
Whoa, that's really rough. Surely the king doesn't go through with it, right?
Actually, Haman gets the king to agree and sets the plan in motion.
Wait, but if all the Jewish people are killed, that would be horrible. They're God's chosen people, aren't they? And that's where Jesus would eventually come from. This can't happen. Somebody's got to do something.
And that's where Esther comes in. She can't stand the thought of seeing her people get wiped out by Haman's awful plan, but she doesn't know what to do.
I know what she should do. Time to lay down the law and tell the king not to do it. She probably kicked into mama bear mode and was all like, "Listen here, buddy."
Let me stop you right there. Keep in mind that this is ancient Persia. You couldn't just approach the king whenever you wanted to, even if you had a reason. Anytime someone would just pop off to the king, they'd usually get a pop off themselves.
Ah, gotcha. So I guess she's in a pretty tough spot, huh?
Totally. On one hand, she didn't want to see her people destroyed, but on the other hand, she can't just walk up to the king and tell him what to do.
Even the queen?
Nope, nobody could just walk up and talk to the king, period.
Man, this is tough stuff. So what'd she do?
Even though her mind was filled with doubt and worry about what would happen to her, she had to do something. Esther knew that no matter what her feelings were telling her, she was a child of God. She knew that God loved her and that he had blessed her life, and that if she stood up for God's people, that God would back her up.
Yeah, that's right. You go, Esther.
Esther trusted God and boldly went before the king. The nobles and the guards that surrounded him couldn't believe what they were seeing. Who did this woman think she was, that she could just walk up to the king on her own?
Oh man, I bet her feelings were totally freaking out.
I'm sure she was feeling a lot of things. She asked the king if she could make a request, and to everyone's surprise, the king wasn't upset. He didn't call for her to be taken away by the guards or thrown in jail, but instead, he listened.
Phew, that was intense. Okay, he's listening. Time to land the plane.
But she couldn't do it.
What? She chickened out? Bummer.
No, not exactly. She didn't want to come right out and tell the king everything, so she asked to have a banquet and planned to tell him there.
Okay, so there's still a chance to save her people. Come on, Esther, you can do it.
Later at the banquet, she went before the king with another request.
All right, here we go. Showtime.
But she was still too nervous.
Goodness gracious, you weren't kidding when you said her feelings were freaking out.
Totally. She was feeling all kinds of things, even questioning if the whole thing was a mistake. But her cousin Mordecai encouraged her and reminded her that what God says is more important than her fears and doubts, and he told her something that she would never forget. Esther, you were put here for such a time as this.
Yeah, come on, Esther, you got this.
Esther had dinner with the king again, and the moment came for her to ask her question. She took a deep breath, and she went for it. She pleaded with him not to go through with Haman's plan to kill the Jews. She finally told him that she was Jewish herself, and if Haman's plan goes through, that she would have to die too.
Man, Esther is one tough cookie. What happened next?
The king was moved by Esther's request and agreed to what she asked. He immediately got rid of Haman and canceled the plan to wipe out the Jewish people.
Yeah, you did it, Esther.
The king also gave all of Haman's wealth and property to Esther and Mordecai. Not only that, but the king signed a new decree to protect the Jewish people and keep them safe. The people of Israel were saved.
Man, Esther is like a real-life superhero. Move over, Wonder Woman. Esther can take you any day.
Esther decided to put her trust in who God said she was more than what she felt. And because of that, her entire country was saved. The end.
Wow, what a hero. Move over Wonder Woman indeed. Queen Esther is a true superhero who saved her whole Jewish nation from being destroyed. But as you saw in that clip, in Esther's story, it took a lot of guts for her to stand up for what is right and to do what she knew God was asking her to do. I think at times she was probably feeling rather petrified. I know I would have been. Vicky talked a couple of weeks ago about courage when we looked at the story of Joshua. And there's a quote I really like that reinforces what Vicky spoke about. And it says this: courage doesn't mean you don't get afraid. Courage means you don't let fear stop you. And that's really important to remember when it comes to standing up for what is right. It may sometimes seem impossible on our own, but with God helping us, we can have courage to do what is right. I wonder, have you ever been in a situation where your friends were doing something they think is all right and they want you to join in, but you know that God says it isn't right? It's not always easy to stand your ground and do what you know what is right in a situation like that. You may feel nervous or scared or just embarrassed to be different, and that's really normal. But when we stand up for what is right, we are honouring God and often helping others as well. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 21 says, "Whoever goes hunting for what is right and kind finds life itself, glorious life." But how do we always know what is right and what is wrong? You see, we can be very good at convincing ourselves that something is okay by telling ourselves things like, "It's not going to hurt anyone, no one will even know." But God has given us some things to help us know what is right from wrong. Firstly, He's given us His Word, the Bible. This shows us what is right and wrong, and it shows us how God wants us to live. He's also given us something called our conscience. You know that little voice in your head that says, you know this isn't right, you'll feel really bad if you do it, and you know that it isn't pleasing to God. Well, that's our God-given conscience. So the next time you hear your friends gossiping about someone else, you could maybe say, "Hey, I don't think we should gossip about others. It's not kind and it's not fair." See, the thing is wrong even if everyone is doing it, and right is right even if no one is doing it. I'll say that once more. Wrong is wrong even if everyone is doing it, and right is still right even if no one is doing it. And sometimes when we follow Jesus, we have to stand out from the crowd because we're choosing to live differently. But remember, we are honouring God when we stand up for what is right. And just like Esther, God will give us the courage to do it, even when it might be a really hard thing to do. So, until next time, my unlikely heroes, remember that heroes have the courage to stand up for what is right. See you later.